Alright guys, I'm gonna do a quick video here. Hopefully it won't be too long, but I'm just gonna go through the progression of Nasdaq as far as the highest timeline down to the lowest timeline. Um, and after this weekend's events, who knows what's gonna happen. Um, but right now, what I have on the screen here is the Nasdaq of the weekly. Now this is a Nasdaq futures. This isn't a CFD or anything else, or the QQQ or the ETF. No, this is strictly futures. Um, so what I'm looking at is the weekly, and it seems that the weekly has basically balanced itself out. We did have an order block down here below, um, or actually, that's what this whole big red candle was the order block. It looks like the following week it actually went below down into that order block. So, and then actually below that you do have a weekly fair value gap that's quite large. Um, However, considering everything has balanced out, and considering smart money concepts would lead you to believe that each fair value gap should be filled. Um, it may get filled. It just depends on what kind of time limit that we're looking at. I don't think this is something that would be filled probably this week or next week. It may be something later on down the line, whenever we start seeing a weakening of the tech sector. But as of right now, I don't see that happening. Um, we do have a small fair value gap in between the week of Monday, June 24th to Monday, July 8th, whenever we had this huge run up in the week of the beginning of July. Think about it, the week of July, it was only a couple days of trading, but it did have quite the run up, and maybe the last week was trying to compensate for what was missing. Also, we did have a couple catalysts. Jerome Powell spoke um, on two different occasions. He spoke to the Senate. He spoke to the Congress, or Congress, and let me see what else happened this past week. If we go to forexfactory.com, we can see what kind of catalyst happened. Sorry, I didn't have this open ahead of time. Um, that's what's going to be happening this week. I want to see what happened last week. Let's see here. We did have the Fed Chair Powell testifies. That was on Wednesday. He also testified on Tuesday. Um, you see, and then we also had core CPI on Thursday. So if we go to, this is the weekly chart. If we go to the daily chart, we can see what happened on Thursday, which I believe that was the drop. Yes, that was the drop. So on the day of Thursday, we did have a massive drop, um, believing it had to do with the actually probably all these numbers. So we had the GDP, sorry, not the GDP, the CPI, month over month coming in soft, or the core coming in soft, the regular CPI coming over soft, and the year over year coming in soft. Now, unemployment claims were a little bit higher than expected. Actually, let me see here, 239. Yeah, or a little bit, well, actually lower than expected, better than expected, I should say, not higher than expected, but better than expected. But it doesn't look like that deterred anything as far as the core CPI numbers are concerned. It seemed like that was what was more the catalyst as to what drove the market down on that day. Now, when the market drove down on that day, there was a 4-hour fair value gap. If we go to the 4-hour, um, and it looks like what happened, if we actually look at the hourly instead, there was a couple equal lows here. So, and if let me see if if I can, and your equal lows, we're going to be right along that green area that I just moved. So right here is that, the green area here is that 4-hour fair value gap that I was talking about. Comes along here, hits the bottom of it, moves up a little bit higher, and then drops down and goes right down into basically about the middle of it, just shortly below the middle of it, a couple dollars below the middle of it, and then starts to run back up. And then at the end of the day, dang it, I didn't mean for that to happen again. At the end of the day, you see quite a bit of a sell-off. Now, what to expect at the beginning of the week? Let me see here. If we look at the Williams is about right in the middle. Average daily range, average true range, a little bit higher than expected. But that's not really going to matter when it comes to the opening today. Now, as far as the COT, I think the COT is a little off for some reason. Let me see here. All right, so maybe just because I have it zoomed in a little bit. Let me see. Yeah, so we have the COT looking at the daily. You can see that the commercial hedgers actually were betting on it going higher when it did, and let me see why the large traders had it going higher at that point. Because it did. So looks like they had it going. The commercial traders had it going lower a little bit. It looks like they sold off right at the perfect time, and then they started betting on it going higher again. As you can see, there's a little bit of a drop off here. So that there's kind of mixed signals here as to what could possibly happen. I mean, my instinct would lead me to believe, especially after events this weekend, we would have some kind of gap opening. But there's really not much to gap considering it ended down here. If it opened, I wouldn't expect it to open much higher than the daily open on Wednesday. And who knows, it could open at exactly where the close was. And we could have a slight pullback into Sunday night, going into Monday morning, going into these fair value gaps, even though it has already balanced. That's what these blue lines are. This blue line here represents the low of Thursday. And this blue line represents, well, I think it needs to be up over here. Yep. That will be the high of the 2 Thursdays before. So, as you can see, it didn't actually rebalance itself. Rebalancing basically means the price action did not leave a gap anywhere in between the price. So, if we would have saw this fair value gap right here, without this wick reaching up into it, or without this wick reaching down and below it, that would lead me to believe that we would absolutely probably be going down back into this fair value gap. I don't see that as the case. I see that as more of, okay, we've already went into this fair value gap. We went into the consequential encroachment, which is the middle of the fair value gap, and then it should be leaving out and then possibly heading toward this this all-time high, actually, I think is what it is. So near roughly around $21,000. So we'll just have to wait and see. Again, that's my take on it. We'll probably be gapping up and then possibly moving up higher, breaking that liquidity. Now, once we break that liquidity, I would be aware that we could be dropping back down into that, because a lot of people are going to be having their buy stops set at those areas. That's what smart money is about. Smart money is about knowing where people have buy stops if they think there's going to be a breakout. All right, if they have their buy stop sitting here, they think that it's going to be a breakout and it's not going to come back down. And generally, with the manipulation of the market, it does do this fake breakout and then drops back down. So be wary of that. Let's go down to the 15-minute chart and let's see what's happening there. So you did see this huge drop on Thursday, again, primarily due to the CPI numbers. And then as the market was closing overnight, we didn't really see much. I just kind of stayed stagnant. And then once the opening of Friday came, we did see a little bit rise above, a little bit dip back down, came up, and it looks like it filled about halfway through what would be a larger fair value gap if we looked at the 4 hour. Yep. So you look at the 4 hour, you do see that there was a larger fair value gap here. It looks like it came up just about midway through and then dropped back down again. So this would be a bearish fair value gap, drops from that fair value gap down into a bullish fair value gap. And as soon as it hits that bullish fair value gap at the end of the day, it kind of rose barely at the end of the day. So again, my take on this would be probably maybe gap up, maybe somewhere around the 625 area, and then possibly pushing up, not all the way up into here, not until we get into the New York Open. But I would think you would see some movement into this to fill this fair value gap, and then maybe back down to fill this fair value gap. Somewhere around in here is where you would see the Sunday night, Asian session kind of lurking around, just to fill these fair value gaps. I don't think it would get any lower than that, because it already broke these liquidity levels, right? So we had this liquidity level here, we had this liquidity level here, and then it drops down and breaks that liquidity level. Again, it's already, and here you can see this spike up, and once it hit this spike up, it broke, it came right up here to this spike, barely broke above it, dropped down, and then it looks like it hit the top of a breaker here. So if I drew that breaker all the way across, it should be this guy right here, a low, high, lower, low scenario. It runs across, and it drops below it, stays below it, even touches the bottom of that breaker, and then all of a sudden runs up and runs through it, stays above it, comes back down, touches it, and then runs it again, leaving that 4-hour fair value gap there. So you can see that it comes back down, touches the top of the fair value gap multiple times, until it finally comes down and breaks down to the middle of it. So I believe all these fair value gaps, these breakers that were in play this past week, are no longer in play, and what you should see is possibly a gap up, as far as the daytime, or as far as the Asian session is concerned for today. And then again, lingering, and then possibly a break above the New York Open. Again, none of this is financial advice. None of this is tailored toward anybody that would be watching this. This is just my opinion on what could happen to the market based on smart money concepts that I have learned through my mentor, Inner Circle Trader. So if you want to learn more about smart money concepts, I would check out Inner Circle Trader. And I'm just giving my opinion, my take on what could happen in the upcoming day or two as far as the market is concerned. So that's all I've got for now. Hopefully you watch this. Hopefully you like it. Hopefully you share it. Check out BodiesXWix for more. I'll try to be doing these hopefully more often, since I've had an upgrade to my office. And we'll see you guys on the flip side. Have a good night.